Imagine two people graduating from the same university on the same day. One becomes a renowned engineer. The other starts a small landscaping business. The engineer spends years mastering complex equations, designing sophisticated systems, and solving problems most people couldn't even describe. Their colleagues admire their intelligence. Their career steadily climbs, and their income grows with it. The landscaper doesn't have an impressive resume. He understands plants, tools, customers, and how to price a job. Nothing about his work seems extraordinary. Fast forward 20 years. The engineer earns over $180,000 a year but worries constantly about bills, carries credit card balances, leases luxury cars, refinances a mortgage twice, and wonders why financial security always feels just out of reach. The landscaper has quietly built a portfolio of rental properties, owns his equipment outright, rarely carries debt, and has enough investments that work has become a choice instead of a necessity. This story isn't unusual. Versions of it play out every day, because intelligence and wealth often travel on entirely different roads. For generations, we've been taught a simple equation: study hard, become smart, get a good job, and financial success will naturally follow. It feels logical. After all, if intelligence helps people solve difficult problems, shouldn't it also help them manage money? Yet reality tells a different story. Some of the brightest minds in medicine, engineering, law, science, and academia quietly struggle with finances. At the same time, many people with average academic backgrounds steadily accumulate wealth over decades. So what explains the gap? Is financial success really about intelligence? Or have we been measuring the wrong kind of intelligence all along? To answer that question, we first need to understand something surprising about the human brain. The brain evolved to help us survive, not to help us become wealthy. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors didn't worry about retirement accounts, index funds, inflation, compound interest, or mortgage rates. They worried about finding food before sunset, avoiding predators, staying accepted within their tribe, making it through another winter. Our brains became incredibly good at solving immediate problems because immediate problems determined whether we lived or died. The future mattered. But the present mattered more. Modern finance asks our brains to do the exact opposite: save instead of spend, delay gratification instead of seeking rewards, invest for decades without immediate results, ignore social pressure while everyone else appears to be upgrading their lifestyles. In other words, building wealth often requires behaving in ways that feel deeply unnatural. This helps explain one of the biggest misconceptions about intelligence. Being intellectually capable doesn't automatically make someone financially effective. Psychologists have long distinguished between different forms of intelligence. Analytical intelligence helps people solve puzzles, recognize patterns, and process information. Emotional intelligence helps people understand emotions and relationships. Practical intelligence helps people navigate everyday decisions. Financial decisions involve all three. You can understand every detail of the stock market yet panic during a market crash. You can calculate mortgage interest perfectly and still buy a house you can't comfortably afford because everyone around you is doing the same. You can explain compound interest in remarkable detail while simultaneously carrying expensive consumer debt. Knowledge alone rarely changes behavior. Behavior is driven by emotion. Behavioral economists have spent decades studying this disconnect. Their research consistently shows that people don't make financial decisions like perfectly rational calculators. Instead, we rely on mental shortcuts known as cognitive biases. These shortcuts save mental energy, but they often lead us toward predictable mistakes. Take overconfidence. The more knowledgeable people become in one area, the easier it becomes to believe their expertise transfers into completely different fields. A successful surgeon may assume they can consistently outperform professional investors. An accomplished software engineer may believe they can accurately predict housing markets. A respected executive may think they can time the stock market because they've successfully managed businesses. Sometimes they succeed. More often, they discover that intelligence doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It simply makes us better at constructing convincing stories about why we're right. Another bias is confirmation bias. Once we form a financial opinion, our brains begin filtering evidence. We seek information that supports our beliefs while quietly ignoring anything that challenges them. This isn't dishonesty. It's simply how human cognition works. The smarter someone is, the more sophisticated those justifications can become. An intelligent person doesn't necessarily have fewer biases. They may simply have better arguments for defending them. Then there's present bias, the tendency to value immediate rewards far more than future ones. Imagine receiving a $2,000 bonus. One option is investing it in a diversified portfolio that could grow substantially over the next 30 years. The other is upgrading your phone, taking a vacation, or buying something you've wanted for months. Logically, many people understand the long-term value of investing. Emotionally, immediate rewards activate powerful dopamine responses. The purchase feels real. The future investment feels abstract. Our brains naturally favor what they can experience today over benefits that may not arrive for decades. This isn't a lack of intelligence, it's human psychology. And modern consumer economies are remarkably good at exploiting it. Every day, thousands of companies compete for one scarce resource: your attention. Advertising rarely focuses on mathematics, it focuses on emotion. Luxury isn't marketed as transportation, it's marketed as identity. Technology isn't sold as functionality, it's sold as status. Fashion isn't simply clothing, it's belonging. Businesses understand something many consumers overlook. People don't usually buy products, they buy feelings, confidence, recognition, comfort, achievement, hope. The more effectively companies connect purchases to emotion, the more likely people are to spend. None of this requires manipulation in the sinister sense. It's simply how markets operate. Businesses create value by understanding human behavior. Consumers create wealth by understanding their own behavior. Those are two very different skills. This distinction becomes even clearer when we look at income. Many people assume earning more automatically leads to becoming wealthier. But income and wealth are not the same thing. Income is what flows into your life. Wealth is what stays after your decisions. Imagine two households earning exactly the same salary. One increases spending every time income rises. A larger house, a newer car, more subscriptions, higher monthly payments, nicer vacations. The other household allows its lifestyle to improve gradually but directs much of every raise into investments that quietly compound year after year. Initially, their lives appear similar. A decade later, they are financially worlds apart. The difference wasn't intelligence. It was behavior repeated consistently over time. This pattern has appeared throughout history. During nearly every major financial bubble, many highly educated investors became convinced that traditional rules no longer applied. The Dutch tulip mania, the South Sea bubble, the dot-com boom, the housing crisis. Each era attracted brilliant participants. Each era produced persuasive arguments explaining why prices could continue rising indefinitely. Each era eventually reminded everyone that markets don't reward intelligence alone. They reward discipline. One of the greatest investors in history, Warren Buffett, has often emphasized that investing isn't primarily an IQ test. Once someone reaches a reasonable level of analytical ability, emotional temperament becomes far more important than raw intelligence. That idea may seem almost disappointing. We like believing success comes from being the smartest person in the room. It's a comforting narrative. But wealth has always been less interested in rewarding brilliance than consistency. Think about physical fitness. Most people already understand what creates better health. Sleep well, exercise regularly, eat balanced meals. The challenge isn't information, it's execution. Personal finance works remarkably the same way. Most long-term wealth principles are surprisingly simple. Spend less than you earn. Avoid unnecessary high-interest debt. Invest consistently. Diversify. Stay patient. Continue learning. None of those ideas are secret. They're simply difficult because they require resisting instincts that evolved long before financial markets existed. Perhaps that's why some financially successful people appear almost boring. They automate savings, ignore short-term market noise, live below their means, avoid showing off, continue investing during good years and bad years alike. These habits rarely make headlines, but over decades they quietly reshape lives. Meanwhile, dramatic financial decisions often attract the most attention despite producing the least reliable outcomes. People celebrate spectacular gains. Few notice quiet consistency. The media naturally amplifies extraordinary stories because extraordinary stories capture attention. But attention and probability aren't the same thing. The millionaire who became wealthy by patiently investing every month for 35 years rarely becomes viral content. The trader who doubled an account in a week certainly does. Our brains confuse visibility with frequency. We remember dramatic exceptions while overlooking ordinary patterns that occur millions of times. Again, psychology shapes financial perception. There's another important lesson hidden inside this. Financial literacy isn't simply learning about money, it's learning about yourself, understanding your emotional triggers, recognizing when fear influences decisions, noticing when comparison quietly changes your priorities, accepting that confidence and competence aren't always the same thing. Every financial decision begins long before dollars move. It begins inside the mind making the choice. That's why two people can read the exact same investing book and build completely different financial futures. The information wasn't different. The behavior was. The real advantage isn't having a perfect strategy. It's building systems that reduce the number of emotional decisions you need to make. Automatic investing, emergency savings, clear financial goals, simple diversified portfolios, rules that operate even when motivation disappears. Systems protect us from ourselves. Willpower fades. Habits endure. Perhaps the greatest irony is that the smartest financial decision often feels the least exciting. No dramatic predictions. No secret formulas. No overnight transformations. Just thousands of ordinary decisions made thoughtfully over many years. That doesn't satisfy our desire for spectacular stories. But reality rarely does. The truth is that intelligence can absolutely help you build wealth. It helps you understand concepts faster, evaluate information more carefully, recognize risks more clearly, solve problems more effectively, but intelligence is only a tool. Whether it creates wealth depends entirely on how consistently it's paired with humility, patience, emotional awareness, and disciplined action. Because money doesn't reward the person who knows the most. It rewards the person who repeatedly makes sound decisions, even when those decisions feel ordinary. So the next time you meet someone who seems financially successful, don't assume they simply knew more than everyone else. Maybe they learned something much more valuable. That mastering your own mind is often more profitable than mastering complex ideas. And perhaps that's the quiet secret hidden behind generations of wealth. Not that wealthy people think faster, but that more often than not, they think differently.